Evergreen Heart. By Oprian. Chapter 22. The First Days of Spring. Yet another sunny spring morning in Ponyville. Kind of nice to live in a place where the weather is strictly regulated. No unexpected rain to ruin your day. Trixie and myself were staying at the library for the foreseeable future. How this came to pass? Well, Twilight and I made a deal of sorts. The night before. You want to do what to my what with a what? I just want to do a series of in-depth thaumaturgic spectroanalyses of your body, among other things, to better understand your unique magi biological morphology. I gave her a blank stare and then looked at Trixie for an answer. She wants to run tests to see what makes you tick. The Azure Mare said with an eye roll. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Next thing I know you will break out the nerve weasel and brain probe. Don't be silly, the nerve weasel is still in the experimental stages, and I promise to be gentle with the brain probe. I gave her my best deadpan stare. That was a joke, she said with a sheepish grin. Was it? Yes, she yelled indignantly. Look, Shui, it's not that I don't want to help you with your research, heck, I want to learn more about myself as well. But you have a tendency to be overzealous. What if I promise not to get carried away? Oh, please, 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 think of all the things we could learn. Do it for science. She gave me the most pathetic puppy dog eyes I've ever seen on a living creature. She even did a little mewling whimper to boot. I could feel my resolve shatter like glassware at a brick-throwing convention. Fine, I said, on one condition. Name it, she said, just a bit too manically for my tastes. I will let you do your tests. In return, you allow me and Trixie to crash at your place until we can get her hooked up with a new wagon to live in, since neither of us have the bits to stay in a hotel right now. Deal. Spike, go set up the spare bed, please. We'll be having guests for a while. Trixie can have the bed to herself, I don't really need to sleep. The Azure Blue Mare muttered something under her breath from the opposite side of the table we were all sitting at. Did you say something, Trixie? Nothing, she yelled and then busied herself with the single large trunk of items she had recovered from storage. It apparently contained everything worth keeping to her. The rest of her possessions had either been broken or were of no real value or use to her, so she had given them up for recycling. Well, all right then, no need to get your knickers in a twist. What are knickers? Spike asked. Never mind, it's just a human expression. Yeah, there's no way I'm explaining that one to the little Drake anytime soon. The present. So yeah, that's how it went. Twilight had wanted to start her experiments right this morning, but I told her I had a previous engagement today. I swear they should register pouts as lethal weapons. The one she gave me could level a small city. Despite some lingering mistrust, she actually managed to get along well enough with Trixie, which was good since it would be a while before she would be moving out. At least if my plans went as I hoped. Right now I was in my Earth Pony disguise on my way back to Sweet Apple Acres to have a talk with Granny Smith. Trixie had decided to stay behind, not really wanting to spend the day on a farm. Instead, she opted to stay at the library and brush up a bit on her magical knowledge. And possible gain a few more spells for her considerable repertoire. Twilight had been kind enough to offer her expertise on the subject. Trixie was rather reluctant to accept Twilight's assistance at first. But eventually she accepted it with as much grace as she could muster. It would give the two something to bond over, hopefully. If they didn't get into a cat fight. Filly fight? Whatever. Just as long as the place is still standing when I return. While passing through town I could hear ponies whispering behind my back when they thought I was out of earshot, but I chose to ignore them. It was to be expected after all. And I'm not so thin-skinned that I'll let a few random comments get to me. They will have to get used to my presence eventually, because right this moment I have no plans to go anywhere anytime soon. As I passed through the market square I let my eyes roam across all the store and business fronts. Most I didn't recognize, and the fact I couldn't read the signs didn't help either. One place in particular caught my eye. The sign outside was a grinning sheep on a grassy green background with gold and yellow script underneath. I stopped a random pony and pointed at the sign. "Pardon me, sir, but what is this place called?" "You kidding me?" the stallion asked uncertainly, shooting me a questioning glance. "No, I simply can't read the sign." "Can't read the... I see. This is the Cheeky Sheep. One of the better-known bars in Ponyville. They have open mic nights every Friday for those who want to try their hoof at singing." "I see, thank you my good stallion." "Yes well, good day." He moved off quickly, muttering something about weirdos under his breath, but I didn't care. The Cheeky Sheep. Well, that's not the oddest name for a bar I've ever heard. Does make me wonder how it got the name in the first place. I threw a glance through the windows. The place had all the hallmarks of a rather cozy Irish pub. Ah, they have a pool table too. Definitely my kind of place. At the back of the room was a small stage with a sign next to it. I couldn't read the scribbles, but the crudely drawn picture of a microphone and a singing pony told me enough. I'm definitely checking this place out later, hopefully when I have a few bits to spend, but for now I had somewhere to be, so I went on my way. Soon the last of the town buildings were behind me and I trotted along the dirt road leading to the apple farm. There was noon in sight as I passed through the gate to the farm proper, so I simply trot on. When I reached the main barn house, the upper part of the Dutch door was open. I knocked on the doorframe and called out. "Hello, and a pony home?" "Hey Aaron," greeted Apple Bloom as she walked out of the kitchen, "what brings you round these parts today?" "Hey there Apple Bloom, is Granny Smith around?" "I think she's out in the barn with meh brother." "What you need her for?" "Just wanted to talk business for a moment is all." "Does that mean you have some free time after?" "I might, why? Wanna help me and the girls with our crusade?" Suddenly a number of doom scenarios flashed through my head. A lot of which involved tree sap and my own broken body. "Pretty please?" She gave me such a hopeful smile and big-eyed stare. I swear they should outlaw this level of cuteness. I'm such a sucker for these adorable ponies. "Well, alright, but I do have other things to do this afternoon." "Yay! It's gonna be great, just wait and see," she yelled exuberantly. "I guess we'll see. It's not as if every plan of theirs ended in disaster, right? What have I gotten myself into?" With that promise made, I went off in search of Granny Smith. It didn't take long to find her. She was, as Apple Bloom said, inside the big barn with Big Macintosh, apparently inspecting cider barrels. "Good morning Mrs. Smith, Big Mac." I greeted them as I stuck my head inside the door. "Mornin' Sonny," Granny said by way of greeting whilst Big Mac gave me a simple nod. As I stepped inside the barn, Granny Smith looked me over with a gimlet's eye. "So you're the feller who caused that ruckus back when Big Mac told me you was back in town. You here to stir up trouble again?" "No ma'am, and for the record, that whole ruckus was a very unfortunate accident." "Was it now?" I nodded vigorously in response. "Ah see, so what brings ya here to Sweet Apple Acres then?" "I was hoping to talk some business with you actually." "Now what kind of business would that be? You don't seem the kind who'd be interested in apples from what I heard." "Not apples no, but applewood actually. I know you occasionally sell some." "It's true that we do, but it's a very small part of our business." "How much wood are we talkin' here?" "Enough to build a decent size wagon for a pony to live in." "That should be manageable." "And how are ya gonna pay for that wood, son? You look like you ain't got two bits to rub together, if you'll pardon my frankness." "You are perceptive Mrs. Smith." "Just Granny Smith is fine, son." "Granny Smith then. I was hoping to be able to repay you for the wood with honest work and a bit of magic. My unique magical gifts could be of use to your farm. While I never say no to a hard worker, I'm not so sure about introducing any of that fancy unicorn magic to our farm. It ain't the Earth Pony way." Nope. Big Mac added solemnly. My magic is different than that of unicorns, in fact it's much closer to earth pony magic as I understand it. That's so? Because most of you fancy schmancy magic wielders have no idea how to work a field. The feel of the soil under your hooves, the subtle rhythm of life around you as you work the field. You think you can do better? I smiled. Like I said, my magic is unique. All I'm asking is an opportunity to show you. Well then Sonny, we shall put you to the test. And if I find your work satisfactory we'll see about getting you that wood. Thank you Granny Smith, I will be able to start in 2 days' time, if that's agreeable. Ya got yourself a deal young un. She said as she spit in her hoof and extended it to me. Excellent. I replied as I mimicked the gesture, hawking a bit of thin, non-sticky sap into my hoof and bumped hers. Well that went better than I expected, I thought to myself as I walked out of the barn. Now some of you might be wondering why I did not simply grow a couple of trees myself and use those for wood. It's actually quite simple, I'm using this as an opportunity to create some goodwill and work on my reputation. The apples are well respected in Ponyville, so if they think I'm okay then that opinion will hopefully rub off on the rest of the town. Working at Sweet Apple Acres, if this was a fanfiction it would be such a cliché, but then again, with my powers what else am I gonna do? Build boats? Besides, I owe them one. I owe Apple Bloom for giving me a chance and befriending me when no other pony would. Aside from Zekora, but she's technically not a pony. And I owe the very trees of Sweet Apple Acres for saving my life after Discord nearly broke me. Speaking of Apple Bloom, she was waiting for me right outside the barn. Crusader cape and all. Oh yeah, now to survive this. Ready to go Crusadin? She asked me all chipperly. As ready as I'll ever be. I said with a hint of trepidation that went completely unnoticed by the energetic little filly. This is gonna be great. Luna preserve me. I thought as I followed her into the fields. It did not take long for us to reach the Crusaders' clubhouse. As if summoned by magic, Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo were already there. Come to think of it, how did they know to be here just now? Do these three have their own bat signal or something? What would that even look like? So what are we doing today? Apple Bloom asked, voice full of enthusiasm. I wanna go bungee jumping. Scootaloo exclaimed whilst bouncing excitedly. How about something a little less likely to result in injury? Said Sweetie Belle. I don't feel like getting covered in tree sap 2 days in a row. Yeah, you can count me out. I said. Why? Asked Scootaloo. Fear of heights. I said simply. Really? The big bad monster of the Everfree is scared of heights, she said with disbelief. And bees? I said flatly. Seriously? They may make sweet, sweet honey, but don't let that fool you. Bees are evil incarnate. The whole honey thing is just a ruse. I said with a conspiratorial stage whisper after checking left and right for eavesdroppers. Sweetie Belle giggled. You're silly. Bees aren't that bad. We use lots of honey when making Zap apple jam. Apple Bloom said. Of course I have to be careful since I am allergic. Okay, maybe I exaggerate, but I don't like them coming near me. A shudder ran through my body, causing me to shed several leaves that were acting as my hair. Anyway, what are we gonna do to earn our cutie marks? Scootaloo got the conversation back on track. Well, it is a very nice day, how about going to the lake for a swim? I'm sure there's lots of activities you can do in and around the water that might get you a cutie mark. I opted. Plus it would be a whole lot safer than bungee jumping. We're not supposed to go swimming without an older pony to supervise. Sweetie said. Aaron can watch us. Apple Bloom said, pretty much drafting me to be their lifeguard. I dunno, Sweetie began. It will be fine. Ub interrupted her. Sure, I can do that much. I used to be a pretty good swimmer. And I learned how to save people as a child. I can surely keep an eye on 3 little fillies. Alright, let's go earn our cutie marks. Maybe Aaron can earn his own. I told you, humans don't get cutie marks. But you aren't human anymore. Yes, but I'm not a pony either, I said as we started our walk towards the lake. Besides, if I wanted a cutie mark, the first can just do this. I focused my magic on my flanks and my mushroom cutie mark appeared. Cool. Sweetie Belle shouted. Wish we could do that. Apple Bloom said with a hint of sadness in her voice. Why a mushroom, that's kinda lame, said Scootaloo. Well, a flower seemed too girly, and it's still related to my own special talents, if you can call it that. So what else can you do? We've seen you shapeshift, but do you have any other cool tricks? Sweetie Belle asked. Well, I can talk to trees, sort of. Talk to trees? That sounds lame, Scootaloo said with an eye roll. Anything that doesn't involve Rainbow Dash or a high probability of injury sounds lame to you, Scoot. Apple Bloom snarked. Hey! I couldn't help but snort with mirth at that. It's not like actual talking using words. But I can feel their energy, their life force. I can feel what they feel, sort of what they think. And in doing so I can tell if they are healthy and happy or not. Isn't that kinda what Earth ponies do? Asked Sweetie. I don't really know. Apple Bloom, remember when we went into the Everfree forest that time to look for Zekora, and you could feel that the forest felt different? Oh yeah, it didn't feel so oppressive and wrong that time. Really? You could feel that? I asked with surprise. Granny Smith always tells me that I should listen to the land, but not with my ears but with my heart. Does that make sense? You should listen to her, Apple Bloom. Granny knows what she's talking about. I nodded. I dunno, she said with her eyes downcast. I love my Granny, but she's a little odd at times. Yes, she said with drooped ears. I gently put a hoof on her withers. Your Granny may be what some ponies call eccentric, but she has lived a long life and has much wisdom to share. A lot of it she likely had to earn the hard way. You would do well to listen to her words. Even if some of it may strike you as strange, there's usually a good reason for it. I guess so, she said, a smile returning to her lips. Perhaps I should give her advice another try. I'd be happy to help you. It's always easier trying to learn new things with a friend by your side. That sounds nice, she said as we arrived at the lake. Blake, so sappy. Scootaloo groaned. I gave the little Pegasus a smirk before unceremoniously picking her up and tossing her into the water. She landed with a splash and went under before emerging with an outraged shriek. We all laughed as she spluttered and glared at us before the other 2 fillies dove in after her. Things devolved into a water splash fight from there. As the morning progressed, I spent most of the time soaking up the sun from the shore while watching them, making sure they didn't do anything too dangerous. At one point I used my magic to grow both a slide and a diving board for them. They were having a great time just being kids, all thoughts of crusading for their max forgotten for the moment as they spend their time just having fun. Said fun was interrupted by the sudden arrival of 2 other fillies. Looky here, Silver Spoon, I spot a bunch of flotsam, and all too familiar voice sneered. You're right, Diamond Tiara, Silver Spoon crowed. Hey, don't call us things I don't know the meaning of, Scootaloo shouted. Oh wait, I was wrong, it's even worse. It's a couple of blank flanks, Diamond said haughtily. The pair laughed at their own wit, so focused on the CMC that they hadn't even noticed me yet. Perfect. I stealthily assumed the form of a bush and then started digging a single vine through the loose soil around the lake. I could see the CMC looking around, probably wondering where I went and why I'm not stepping in to put a stop to Diamond's bullying. Just hang on for a moment, girls, I thought to myself. Maybe the 3 of you should just build a raft and float away, because you will never amount to anything. Pretty soon no pone in this town will want you around. Diamond continued her taunts while Silver Spoon laughed at her friend's witty comment. I burrowed my vine through the sand until it emerged roughly a foot or so behind the pair. I then grew its tip into a thick bushel of stinging nettles, and smacked the both of them across their rumps with it. The results were immediate, the two of them jumped forward with a shriek. Diamond Tiara turned to look for her assailant, but I had already retracted the vine back below the surface. Silver Spoon danced in place, whimpering and rubbing a hoof across her rump as the sting truly set in. I made those nettles extra potent so the two of them should be feeling a burning, stinging itch for quite some time. The CMC meanwhile had burst out laughing at the expressions the two bullies were making as they desperately danced about, trying to rub the burn from their rumps. Their dignity destroyed, the two of them took off at a full gallop. Serves them right. I snorted as I reassumed my pony form. That was awesome! Scudolo shouted. You're my new hero. I hope you don't get in trouble for that. Sweetie Belle said with a hint of worry. I won't tell no pony if you won't. I smirked. Deal, they chorused. I'll call this day a win so far. And the day had started off so well. It was just after lunchtime, and I was currently in Twilight's basement, hooked up to a blinking beeping contraption that looked like several household appliances slapped together. I have no idea where all this stuff came from since it certainly wasn't here the last time I was in the basement. Is all this really necessary? I asked as Twilight attached yet another adhesive patch with a wire to my form. I was practically covered in the darn things. Any more and I would look like cousin its long-lost brother. Of course, we can't risk missing anything during these tests. That would ruin the results. She said in all seriousness as she strapped a sieve full of blinking lights to my head. You promised not to go overboard, this seems excessive. Quit whining, this is for science. She beamed. I could see Trixie observing us from the corner of my eyes. She's pretending to read a book, but I can see the giant smirk on her face. I would flip her the bird, but the gesture would be lost on her. Plus there are so many wires on me I'm afraid to break something. Can we just get on with it? I sighed. Just a moment more, I need to make sure everything is plugged in correctly. She fiddles with the wiring, and suddenly I got an electric shock. Ow, what the fuck? Sorry, wrong socket. And mind your language, she says far too chipperly. If this ends up electrocuting me I will file a formal complaint, in triplicate. Do have some faith in me would you, I know what I'm doing. Famous last words Twilight. She busied herself with the device, which began to spit out a stream of paper with what looked like an ECG, or possibly a seismometer readout. All right, the device is on, everything is hooked up properly, let's do this. So what do I actually do? Nothing yet, I want to establish a good baseline. Trixie let out a yawn. Well, this is certainly riveting. And here Trixie was half expecting things to blow up. Science is about facts and data, not spectacular explosions. Twilight told her with a glare. Tell that to the Mythbusters. I deadpanned. Twilight turned back to me with a puzzled look. Who are the Mythbusters? Oh, just the most awesome people ever. They were a group of people who used elements of the scientific method to test the validity of rumors, myths, movie scenes, and more. And often created awesome explosions to boot. That doesn't sound very scientific. You would be wrong, Chui, you would be wrong. Moving on, let's try a little magic, shall we? Alright, what do you want me to do? Can you just gather your magic in one place? Like a unicorn would with his or her horn. That way we can get a good look at your energy flow. I can do that much, sure. I focused my energy and let it stream out into my front legs, holding it there. Nice. Twilight said as she made a couple of marks on the printout. Now can you cast an actual spell? No. I don't know any actual spells like you do. I can certainly try to create an effect, perhaps making a seed grow. Would that do? I guess, Go ahead. Opening a small hole in my side, I reached inside myself towards one of the hollow pockets where I keep things. That looks kinda disturbing. Twilight said. It beats having to buy saddlebags. I wasn't sure what was in there right now, so I just pulled out everything and dumped it on one of Twilight's lab tables. Selecting a choice seed from among the pile, I placed it on the floor in front of me and focused my magic on it. The little seedling burst and began to grow. It turned out to be a watermelon seed. I thought it was an apple seed at first. Don't give me that look. I might be a plant, but I still have trouble telling certain seeds apart from each other. As I made the plant grow, the scratching and beeping of the device Twilight had me hooked up to intensified until it became almost a constant buzz. That's not possible, Twilight said as she hovered over the device, checking the data. This has to be wrong. Your magic is throwing all the laws of energy conservation out of the window. It's as if it has no respect for natural limitations at all. Forgive my ignorance, Twilight, but doesn't magic always kick the laws of nature and physics in the flank? I mean, a lot of magical effects shouldn't be possible, right? No, she drawled, magic doesn't simply create or destroy matter or energy, it transforms it from one state into another. She trotted over to her blackboard and sketched out a couple of diagrams and pictures of a plant in various stages of growth. When a unicorn grows a plant, the magic stimulates the plant into absorbing nutrients from the soil more rapidly and converting it into rapid cell growth. Basically, we are speeding up the plant's natural growth cycle. Your magic is making this plant grow without a food source. Everything I learned of magic states that the plant should be cannibalizing its own cells in order to make more without an outside source of food, thus causing it to self-destruct. According to Star Swirl the Bearded's laws of magic, what we just witnessed should be utterly impossible. How in the name of Celestia do you do it? I don't know, I just do. Twilight let out a disappointed sigh. And without a spell matrix there is only so much I can analyze. Without it I can't explain how it works. I guess this was a dead end. As a popular saying goes, it's magic, I ain't gotta explain shit. She scowled at me. Do you have to use profanity all the time? Fuck yes. I stated with gusto. Eliciting an amused snort from Trixie and a deeper scowl from Twilight. It's proven to work as a form of stress relief. And it's also a coping mechanism. Considering all the strange and dangerous crap that has been happening, both to me and around me since I got to this world, my swearing has been rather tame so far, all things considered. It's juvenile, unbecoming, and frankly bad-mannered. Rarity would call it uncouth. Rarity is a generous and creative darling who I greatly respect. I said. She's also a bit of a pretentious cunt who isn't afraid to use her sex appeal to get what she wants. Doesn't make me respect or care for her any less though, since her good qualities far outweigh her bad ones. Twilight blanched at what I had just said, glaring at me angrily. You can't just go around insulting my friends like that. It's not an insult if it's true, I said, causing her to growl at me. Look, Twilight, your friends aren't saints, you know. Well, except for Fluttershy maybe. Then again, you know what they say about the quiet ones. My point is, we all have our flaws. I happen to swear a bit more than is perhaps strictly necessary, but it doesn't harm anyone, and I reel it in when I'm around children, so kindly get off my back about it. You're a grown-up mare, a little profanity now and then shouldn't even faze you. I bet you Rainbow and AJ swear all the time. They do not. Maybe not within earshot. Ugh, enough already. This argument is going nowhere, and I'm not going to listen to you bad-mouthing or insulting my friends any further. That wasn't an insult. Trust me, if I really wanted to be insulting you'd know it. Ugh, just get out, we're done here for today anyway. Twilight remained ticked off with me for another day or so, but soon enough things went back to normal. Or as normal as my life gets these days anyway. At least she stopped glaring at me anytime I entered her presence. Was I being a jerk? Perhaps a little. Give me a break, I'm not a white knight. If anything, I'm a grey knight at best. Maybe it was just my mind's way of rebelling against my situation. Equestria is such a saccharine place compared to Earth, when something isn't actively trying to murder the hell out of me, that is. But the normal day-to-day life can be a bit too sweet to handle at times. Especially if Pinkie Pie gets involved. That pony is an endless source of cheer and good vibes. Maybe I should ask her for an apology cupcake for Twilight. Well, it would have to wait till later. Right now I was back on the farm for my first day of work. Honestly, there was not a whole lot to do in the spring. Most of the work consisted of pruning the trees, fertilizing the soil, planting new saplings, and of course pollination. Which is where Ponyville's resident beekeepers came in. Turns out Ponyville does have an actual apiary. It's kept well away from the town, fortunately. I had made it very clear to AJ that I would not go anywhere near the farm on the days when they brought in the hive boxes. The very thought made my proverbial skin crawl. But fortunately they wouldn't be bringing the bees in for a few days yet. Fortunately she understood my situation well enough, though I did receive some good-natured ribbing about it. We were currently loading up a cart with bags of fertilizer and crates full of little saplings. That is to say, I did most of the loading. I am easily twice as strong as any earth pony, if not more so, and my body doesn't get tired, so I offered to do the heavy lifting while AJ sorted out the tools and supplies we needed. Pruning shears, tape, wire, shovels, you get the idea. You doing all right there, Sugar Cube? For the 5th time, Applejack, I'm fine. It's not like I have an actual spine I could hurt. Unlike you and Big Macintosh. I told her as I hoisted 2 more bags of fertilizer into the cart. Sorry, Sugar, it's just that I'm not used to having some pony outside the family working alongside us. Especially not some pony who can lift more than my brother. Don't sweat it, AJ. I'm just thankful for the opportunity you guys have given me. Most ponies still avoid me. Not that I can honestly blame them, but still. They'll come round soon enough. She said with conviction. And we don't really mind having an extra pair of hooves, or hands, to help out. Hands, hooves, tentacles, it's all the same to me these days. I said whilst morphing my front limbs into said appendages. AJ stared at me with an unreadable expression. That's still very creepy to watch up close. I turned my limbs back into hooves. Sorry, didn't mean to creep you out. No harm done. Ready to get this cart out into the field. Lead the way, boss. Just AJ is fine, calling me boss feels wrong for some reason. Whatever you say, AJ. I said as I slipped into the harness in front of the cart and began to pull. Where are the others today anyway? Apple Bloom is still in school, and Big Mac is working the east field. We'll be working the west field and meet in the middle. The walk to the west field didn't take very long. I soaked up the sun as we walked, letting it fill me with strength and energy. It still feels strange to me sometimes how being outdoors feels so right to me these days. When I was still human, I spent the majority of my time indoors. My skin didn't handle sunlight very well. Half an hour out in a field like this would have cooked me like a lobster. So what's first? I asked as we came to a stop on the edge of the west field. First we gotta dig out some of the stumps that are left over from the OL trees. The soil should be soft enough now that winter is gone. Once that's done we can plant some fresh saplings. I grabbed the shovels from the cart. Sounds simple enough. It turned out to be a lot more tricky than I thought. Digging out the stumps was a rather involved process. It took nearly half an hour to dig up just the one. And even then we had to use some brute force to work it free, and still some roots remained behind. Back on Earth we could have used an excavator. How many of these do we have to dig up? A good 50 or so. Big Mac and I usually do about 10 per day if we're lucky. AJ said as she wiped the sweat from her brow with a hoof. I looked at the next stump a couple of yards over. AJ, do you mind if I tried some magic on the next one? No disrespect to the Earth Pony way of doing things, but I think I can save you a lot of time. Well sure, that was part of the deal ya made with Granny. Let's see what ya got, partner. I gave her a smile and walked over to the next stump, transforming from a pony into my humanoid form as I walked. Whenever I try something new, it feels easier to do while assuming a human form. It takes less effort to control for me as well. I guess it could be considered my default form. I closed my eyes and focused my magical senses on the stump. There was no spark of life left in it for me to sense or manipulate. Just dead wood. I reached out with my magic, willing the stump to me with my Timberwolf ability to assimilate dead vegetation. I feel the stump trying to move. I can see it vibrate as it tries to dislodge itself, but the roots have spread deep and wide and the soil refuses to relinquish its grip on it. Time to try a different approach. I haven't tried to call upon this part of my power since the spider nest. I planted my feet firmly in a wide stance and focused my magic inwards. I reached out with a hand and a tremor ran through the ground. I made a grabbing motion with my hand, picturing the stump in my mind. I then turned my palm upward and made a pulling motion. The earth itself moved to my command, ripping the stump free. Rock and soil bending to my will as if they were part of me. I looked at the rest of the row of tree stumps and directed the magic towards them. I stomped the ground with a foot and made the same grabbing and pulling motion with my hand. The ground heaved and the stumps tore free, the soil beneath them moving like the waves of the ocean. The stumps landed in a pile on a free patch of ground, ready to be carted off. I released my grip on the earth and opened my eyes to find AJ staring at me open-mouthed. I gave her my best winning smile. Or tried to anyway. It came out as more of a shit-eating grin, despite my best efforts. Just call me Toph.